Welcome to Tradutex Portuguese Lessons Podcast. Olá, eu sou a Helena, and on this episode we're going to carry on talking about the numbers. Os números. Os números. On the last two episodes we've covered numbers from 0 up to 100. De 0 até 100. De 0 até 100. And on today's episode, we're going to have a look at the big numbers, starting with 101. So this is the first thing we need to see, the fact that for the word 100, we have more than one word. Actually, we have two words. As we've learned before, 100 is the word 100. 100. Don't close your lips at the end, okay? Keep your mouth open. Use your nose, it's a nasal ein. We'll repeat. 100. And that means 100. But when we start counting from there, when we say 101 or 102, in Portuguese the word 100 changes into the word cento. Cento. So instead of 100, that only means 100, counting from there, we change the word into the word cento. So let's see a practical example. Imagine you want to say 101. 101. 101. Let's try to run these three words together. 101. 101. Okay, so what we're doing is that we're using the word cento plus the word e, meaning and the number 1, If you've already listened to the first episode about the numbers, you know that the number 1 in Portuguese has actually two versions, a masculine one, and a feminine one, uma. And this, we're going to decide which one to use according to the following word, if there's a following word, if there's a context. With no context, if you're just counting, if you're just doing math, we always use the masculine singular. So 101 without any context is naturally 101. 101. But let's say, for instance, you're talking about 101 houses. The word for houses is the word casas. 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 And it ends at as, and it is a feminine word. So if we want to say 101 houses, we need to pick the feminine version of number 1. So we will say 101 casas. A bit quicker now. 101 casas. Okay, so the rules we've learned for number 1 and number 2. So remember, number 2 can be dois, but it can also be duas, depending on the following word. So let's say we're saying 102 houses. Knowing that houses is casas, and that is a feminine word, we would have to say 102. So it's the feminine version of number 2, duas casas. 102 casas. 102 casas. So every time numbers 1 and 2 come up, we need to check if there is a context, if there is a following word, in order to decide which version of the number we're going to use, the masculine dois or the feminine uma, duas. Okay, so let's carry on talking about number 100 and something. So to say 101, we do 101. Don't forget this word E, that it's actually just one little letter. In English is the letter E, but in Portuguese is the letter E. That's how we spell it, and that means and. And if we have the number 100 and let's say 23, we also have to put a E, meaning and, in between of each number. So 123 is 123. 123. I will repeat slowly. 123. So it's 5 words we're saying. Now let's run these 5 words together to flow better, and we'll say 123. 123. 123. Okay, so we always do this. We always have to place the E between the hundreds and the tenths and the tenths and the units. So let's pick another example so you see what I'm saying. Let's try to say, for instance, 154. So 100 is 154. 154. 154. Okay, so you see the idea. So in between each number, we have the word E. So now you know that to say 100 on its own, we use the word 100. And to say 100 and something, we change the word into 100. And to say 100 and, 34, 45, we always need to place the word E in between of each number. Let's do just one more, because this will be then the same logic for all the other numbers we're going to see on this episode today. Let's try to say, for instance, 185. 185. 185. So when we run the words together, it's not a matter of saying very quickly. You don't need to say 185. You can, but you don't need to say like that. It's more a matter to run the words together so they flow better. So instead of separate each word to say 185, that sounds really artificial, even if you say it quickly, try to run it together. 185. 185. Okay, so now let's have a look at the following big numbers. 200. 200 is 200. Okay, 3 syllables. I'll repeat. 200. 200. 200. So now we're going to see that from 200 up to 900, these numbers also have a feminine version. And the feminine version will be applied exactly with the same rules we've learned for number 1 and 2. So we only use them if they are followed by a feminine word. Let's pick the example of houses again. Still remember, houses is casas. So if I'm talking about 200 houses, I say 200 casas. 200 casas. But if I'm talking about 200 cars, and the word for cars is carros, with OS at the end, OS, carros, masculine and plural. So if I'm talking about 200 cars, I need to say 200 carros. Okay, do you want to repeat with me? Let's say first 200 cars and then we'll say 200 houses. Are you ready? We go slowly, at your pace. First the cars. 200 carros. Now the houses. 200 casas. So 200, the masculine ending is OS, or in Portuguese OS, and 200, the feminine version of the number, ends at AS, or in Portuguese AS. Okay, keep this logic in mind because that will be helpful, as I said, for all the following numbers. So you know 200, now let's learn 300. 300. Let's repeat again slowly. I will break in syllables for you to be easier. 3 syllables. 300. Let's now put all these 3 syllables together. 300. 300. And of course, if we're talking about something feminine, we need to say 300. 300. Okay, let's do again the example of cars and houses, and you can repeat with me so you can get the sound of the number a bit better. 300 cars. 300 carros. 300 houses. 300 casas. And just like we've learned for 157 or 84 or whatever, here we also have to place the word E, meaning and, in between of each number. So if I'm saying 336, we go 336, which in Portuguese is 336. 336. So always the same rule. Place the E in between each number. Let's do it again. 336. Okay, so far things weren't that regular or that completely obvious because 100, we don't even have the word one in it. We say cem, and then 100 and something we say cento. It doesn't relate much to number 1, which is So it's something that you really need to remember. So it cannot relate easily to number 1. And then 200, to say 200, it kind of relates to the word for 2, which is dois, but it's not exactly the same spelling. With dois, we have D-O-I-S, or in Portuguese, D-O-I-S. And then 200, we actually have D-U-Z-E-N-T-O-S, or in Portuguese, D-U-Z-E-N-T-O-S. My point is, dois starts with D-O-I, or in Portuguese, D-O-I, but 200 starts with D-U-Z, or in Portuguese, D-U-Z. So although the sounds relate, they're not exactly the same sounds or the same letters. And the same thing happens with 300. So you know the number 3, which is três, but then 300 is 300. okay, it relates. You can remember one and then easily get the other, but it's not exactly the same word. Três, let's spell it. I'll do it in English first and then slowly in Portuguese. T-R-E, and this he takes one accent called the circumflex, and then S. So T-R-E with a circumflex S. In Portuguese, em português, T-R-E com acento circunflexo S. But then 300, it's T-R-E-Z, or in Portuguese, T-R-E-Z. So, okay, it relates, but it's not exactly the same number. What I'm trying to say is that we will need a bit of memory to remember 100, 200, 300. But the following one we're going to learn is pretty good. It actually works a bit like in English. In English we say 400. And in Portuguese we do something very similar. We do have the word quatro, and then it carries on saying centos. Quatrocentos. It is just one word. We spell it in just one word, but when we pronounce it, it feels like two different words. So, let's repeat again together. Quatrocentos. And doing the same story about cars and houses, so you see the difference between masculine and feminine. 400 cars, 400 carros. 400 houses, 400 casas. So this one is pretty easy to remember. Just remember your number 4, quatro, and complete your word with the word centos, being 100. Quatrocentos. Now the following one is the tricky one. No one ever likes this one because it's not easy to relate it with the number 5, that is cinco. 500 has nothing to do with the idea of cinco. So stay with me. Repeat it slowly. Let's do it together. We say quinhentos. 3 syllables. I will repeat one by one. Quinhentos. 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 So first we have the sound qui. Then nhé, 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 nhé. You know this nasal nhé? Quinhentos. And again the same logic for masculine and feminine. 500 cars, 500 carros, 500 houses, 500 casas. 500 carros, 500 casas. So this one is a tricky one to remember because the beginning has nothing to do with the number 5, cinco, and then the ending has nothing to do with centos because we actually say quinhentos. Okay, not completely nothing to do with it, but there's no C. Okay? Quinhentos. So a bit of effort on this one to see if we can remember it later. And now you can relax a bit because the following 4 numbers are actually pretty easy. They follow the same logic English numbers do. So for 600, we say 600. So just like in English, 6, we say 6. 100, we say centos. 600. If it helps, although it is just one word, you can have a little small break in the middle. 600. That might be easier for you to pronounce. 600. Same thing about cars and houses. Let's do it again. 600 cars, 600 carros, 600 houses, 600 casas. 600. And now if I'm telling you that the following numbers follow the same exact logic, you can guess how do we say 700. 100. That's right. First, we think about the word 7. And the word 7 is set. And then we think about that ending meaning 100, which is centos. And we put them together in just one word. Setecentos. 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 700 carros. 700 casas. 700 carros. 700 casas. 800, the exact same logic. So you can guess. 8 is 8. 100 will be centos. Let's put it together. 800. 800. 800 carros. 800 casas. 800 carros. 800 casas. And again, easy, 900. 9 is 9. 100 is centos. Let's put it together in just one word. 900. 900. 900 carros. 900 casas. And for all these numbers we saw now together, we always have, if we do it 931 or 972, we always have to put the E in the middle. Let's say 972 for an example. 972. No context, we go to the masculine. If we're talking about houses, 972. That's right, number 2 also has to change into duas. And finally, 1000. We just say 1000. Small word. 1000. Let me spell it for you. In English, M-I-L. In Portuguese, M-I-L. M-I-L. 1000. 1000. Okay, so I know it's a lot of numbers, they're big numbers. I just want to go through all of them again with you to check your pronunciation. We'll start with 100 on its own. So 100, and that is 100. 100. But if you say 100 and something, the word 100 changes into cento. Cento. On this one, we don't have a masculine or a feminine. It is just one possibility. Now, 200, 200. Or feminine, 200. 300, 300. 300. 400, 400. 400. 500, 500. 500. Special attention on this one, don't forget. 600, 600. 600. 700, 700. 700. 800, 800. 800. 900, 900. 900. 1000. 1000. Okay, with no English now, I will just repeat again from 100 up to 1000. Okay, and you can repeat with me. I will give you some time for you to repeat. We'll start with 100 and then 100 and something. Okay? 100, 100, 200, 200, 300, 300, 400, 400, 500, 500, 600, 600, 700, 700, 800, 800, 900, 900, 1000. Okay, so I hope you've liked this episode, and you can always repeat and play it again until you get all these numbers right. So, see you soon. Até breve.